Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Jason.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
You know, Joel, it just occurred to me that there have been a number of times on the show, both recently and even over the years, where you would tell me about, you have somebody who you helped or some young person who came into your life who had a really cool story, and you were going to bring him onto the show at some point. And I kept thinking, well, he keeps saying that, but it's probably not going to happen. And today it's happening.
Yes,
that's
very
great.
Exciting. Yes.
Yeah.
That is so cool. His name is Judson. And Judson, I got to tell you, first of all, when we were talking before we got started here, and you told me you'd been listening to the show, I got to say, I'm really grateful because, I mean, I kind of expect my generation to be listening and maybe a little bit younger, but your generation listening, that's like the ultimate compliment. So thank you for being a listener. I appreciate that.
Of course, I'm extremely grateful as well. I included among my things I like to listen to that's sort of like positive programming, positive reinforcement, right alongside with like Abraham Hicks, Bob Proctor. It's like LOA Today podcast is something, when I need that daily dose of happy, right? Yeah.
Okay, so like I've got red going into my face right now, so I'm going to change the subject. It's a little embarrassing.
Yeah.
But we're really glad to have you on the show. I think what we need to do is start off with you telling your story, how you got involved with Joel and what your background was and so forth, so we know what the lay of the land is, and then we'll just get into it. So tell us the story of Judson.
Oh yeah. Let's see. Right now I am 29 years old. I have 4 sisters, and yes, I'm the only guy. And I struggled a lot with ADHD my whole life, specifically inattentive type ADD, just like Joel. And I've always had a lot of trouble focusing, especially in elementary school, middle school, high school. Just everything was just very boring. I couldn't focus, and I definitely had negative outlooks on myself. Like I just was very lazy, or I just wasn't very smart, and I just I couldn't stay awake in class, for example. I would just sometimes go to sleep after I'd given up at a certain point. And yeah, I believed that I was very lazy and not too intelligent. And so therefore my reality was
on
based
that, right?
on that.
I mean, because that's what the teachers were telling you and the administrators, they were all kind of reinforcing that same belief system.
Yes, exactly. And I was dealing with a lot of very bad depression and very dysfunctional family. Parents both have some mental health issues for sure, and a lot of childhood physical and emotional abuse for sure as well. And I went to, when I was maybe 23, I would say, one day I think I had a longing to, do well. I was very, very depressed. I was on multiple antidepressants, and I just had a strong longing to just take action, do something. I don't know. And so I found a doctor, and I went to this doctor, and this doctor referred me to his wilderness therapy program. It was a 3-week wilderness therapy program. And after I went to that, so all I was with 3 other boys there, and they kind of were there for like drug addiction issues and such. And I was there for more so depression and family issues. And so we kind of were sent different ways. They were all sent to therapists, and Dr. Bright actually referred me to Joel, which was really interesting, really cool. I think he just saw that. Yeah. So that's how I found Joel, and he told me Joel specializes in ADD, and just that. Yeah, that's how I ended up with Joel. Yeah.
Okay, and tell us what that experience is like, because I mean, we know what it's like. Me and Joel talking here on the show, and listeners have a good idea of what his personality is like from that viewpoint. But what's he like to work with?
Oh yeah, he's honestly, I don't know how. I know this sounds like just such a simple answer, but he's the same. He's like the same as you is in the podcast. Yeah, I remember my first experience. I went in with my grandma and my step grandfather. They went in with me for my first appointment. And they were kind of just talking about, I remember I first stepped in and I could see, there was like a diagram, on his table. Like he had just really cool stuff. He had like you have that brain thing on your table, remember?
Yes.
The little brain physical replication thing. Yeah, I remember first noticing that. I was like, oh, interesting. And just all the books around and everything. And my grandma and grandpa were with me, and they were really trying to get Joel to encourage me to get a traditional 9-to-5 job, like at Chipotle or something like that. And at that same appointment, I discussed how I had had an idea to start my own Amazon business, and they didn't think my grandparents didn't think it was a real thing. They just thought it was sort of like, I don't know, just like playing video games or something like that at the time. They didn't really take it that seriously. And they kind of wanted Joel to talk some sense into me, basically. But Joel, his reaction was just sort of like, well, I don't know. Let's see what happens. Let's just give this a shot. Let's give this like, a few months or something like that. And let's see what happens. And let's, we can always readjust the sales from there. Let's see how that goes. And yeah, I would say he's pretty much the same. He's kind of like, let's take some action. Let's, just like in the podcast.
Okay. Yeah. What do you remember about that meeting, Joel? What that first meeting that Judson's talking about?
Well, he's being very humble. First of all, Judson, when he came to me, his grandparents, very loving people. His grandmother had since passed away. Very, very kind, sweet lady.
Yes.
And they had in their mind the traditional route. You're to get a job and then maybe get a promotion, and there's nothing wrong with that, as we know. But
Right.
He had a very clear idea. He had obviously done a little research, and he had dealt with a lot, as he's saying. And he, I don't know if he, in the beginning, he certainly was still managing. And he mentions depression, but his anxiety to me is what stood out. It was almost debilitating in a lot of ways.
Okay.
And his willingness to, hey, I think we have a shot. And so I told his grandparents, just like he said, let's give it a few months and give him the opportunity to do this, because it's his idea versus somebody else's idea. And when it's somebody's idea, they have a tendency to fulfill it better. So that made sense to them. His grandfather was very logical. He's a very wise man, very logical, and that made sense to him. And so he was able to say, so let's put a time limit on it. We'll reconvene and see where we go. And then when I was talking to Judson, now it's on you.
The pressure's on.
Yeah, now it's time to perform. And I know a lot of people that over the years that have said they're going to do something, and he just dove in, and he dove in head first, and he was learning, and we would meet every week at that time. We don't meet every week now, but we meet every week then. And it was, we were brainstorming. He was telling about the new discoveries. He was always upgrading ideas. He quickly became very successful. And now it takes a while for it to translate into having some money, because most of the money he was making early was going right back into the business. But
which is a good thing to do, yeah.
Which is the way you do it. And we focused on the abundance mindset. And one of the things that I watched happen was, over a period of time, his depression and anxiety just started to wane greatly. I always have a belief that when you fix your life and you do something you're empowered to do, that you want to do, life gets better. And the things that were making him depressed, a lot of that was sort of being taken away by his action that he was taking. And over the years, he was on some pretty heavy duty medications back at the time. He recently has got rid of the last one. I hope that's not too personal. I'm very proud of him.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, not too personal at all. Thank you. Yeah.
That's exciting.
He was when I first met him, he was scared to drive in certain situations. A lot of now he'll drive up and down the East Coast all the time, going to sourcing events for his business. And not only has he kept working toward things, he implements the law of attraction every day. It changes every perspective, the way he deals with people. We had a very interesting time. This wasn't too terribly long ago. One of the things, he had a chance to have a wholesale opportunity with this company not far from where my office was. Yeah. And he was just reluctant to make that call because it was uncomfortable. I have to talk to somebody.
Sure.
So we were hoping he would talk to her in the office, but he was able to give the call. He made that call. He eventually became a distributor for that company, and
Oh,
and
wow.
all those things just started. Him making a call now is not a thing at all. I mean, he'll do whatever it has to. He's not. So I've watched his anxiety just basically disappear.
Yeah.
His depression. He's one of the happiest people I know, and he did that mainly through the law of attraction. And my dear friend, Dr. Bright, who referred him, and his doctor, of course, he will say that was the incredible medication that he was giving him that gave him that. And so he will not be watching this podcast. I'll just say that's not the truth, but
Okay.
he feels that way, you know?
Yeah.
But I watched this young man over the last 6-7 years become, very competent in business. He never stops grinding. He never stops learning. He's always bringing me new ideas. We look at new ideas. Some of those ideas he doesn't like or don't work out, but he's willing to look at all things. And so he lives the law of attraction every day. It affects he's like me, and you, and there's none of that that's going to affect him, what's going on. The outside events have no bearing. We just get up, we do the things we do, just like we said. I told him, like I tell every client, and he knew this anyway. I think we've been through maybe 2 presidents now doing this, but no matter who wins the election, we're going to be good.
Yep.
That's how it's going to be. And that's what's happened. So now we're at a point in business that he is just on cruise control, not getting too personal. He'll be very successful, very wealthy. He invests like we talk about investing.
That's fantastic.
And I'm just he's an example of someone who can live. We talk law of attraction all the time, but the law of attraction, when you implement it the way Judson's implemented, it cures all this stuff. It doesn't, it doesn't just, oh, my life's better. He's an entirely different person. He's competent. His grandmother, before she passed away, was able to see this version of him. She was very proud of him. His grandfather actually told him once that if he was reluctant for our plan early, but later told Judson that he was very proud of him, and he had never made as much money as Judson made in a year.
Wow.
And saw that. So his grandmother got to see this incredibly polished version of himself, and I just can't be more proud of him. I see he is someone that he listened, implemented, and never stopped, never looked back. Doesn't mean he didn't have moments of doubt or have a bad this or that, relationship, whatever. Life happens.
Yeah.
But he's always adjusting the perspective, bouncing back. So that's my story. He's not going to say all that, but I'll say it.
Well, somebody's got to say it. That's a good thing.
So I'm telling you that I've worked with thousands of people over the years, and I'm very, if they all did this, it would be amazing. They don't all do this. And so that's why I love what he's done. And we have we have become friends on top of our therapeutic relationship. I'll text him, during the week, hey, Bitcoin's up. Oh, Bitcoin's down. But we're very vested and also the last point, and I'll let him talk some, I promise. But the last point is his change, not getting into anyone else's personal details, but there's members of his family that have dealt with a lot of stuff, but his change has affected them positively as well, because what he tolerates or doesn't tolerate, or he's moved on, they've been affected in a positive way by his improvement. And that's one of the best things that I've seen happen too.
That's exciting.
So that's my story. He wasn't going to, like I said, he wasn't going to go into all that, but that's my story. That's it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I really appreciate that. That means a lot to me, because not only are you, you've been an incredible life coach. You've been, the person that has inspired me most in this world. You're simultaneously like a dad to me, but also a great friend, like you said. I feel a great energy exchange, and I'm talking to someone who's in that same, vibrational alignment. I just feel, you're a great friend of mine too, and a great life coach. And I'm really, that means a lot to me to hear that. I remember my first appointment with you as well. I remember you recommending The Secret. That's kind of like your go-to law of attraction type thing. I mean, it's I think that's how you first got into it as well. You said it's sort of it doesn't go all the way in, like we always say, but it's a good introduction. And so I think I first watched the the movie first. If I call it a movie, I guess, or
Yeah.
documentary.
Documentary movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I first watched it and eventually did read the book as well. And I remember thinking, I've always been open-minded, so I always gave it a chance. At first, I was kind of like, I don't know about this. I mean, I was just kind of like, well, I'm gonna give it a shot. I don't know, and
that's the way I felt. By the way, when I saw the movie, it was exactly the same reaction. I don't know about this, but I'll give it a shot.
yeah, exactly. So it was just sort of like, but I mean, I'll check it out. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, thinking positively, who can go wrong with that? And so I started out with gratitude journaling and just positive affirmations, and while simultaneously running my business and taking action and jumping into the fear, even though early on it felt like the anxiety was pretty much overwhelming. It kind of felt like I was in an ocean, like it was an ocean of fear, and I was afraid of what was below me and what was around me because I didn't know what it was. But now looking at the contrast compared to that, it's like, sweet, I don't know what's coming next. Cool. Yeah. Like this ocean's cool. There's some sharks right there. There's some starfish. It's cool. The ocean's cool now. And so it's the opposite now. But yes, so I gratitude journaled and just started listening more and more to Abraham Hicks, all sorts of other places. Let's see, I could go the path of talking about law of attraction or talking more towards my business. I'm trying to think which one. Which
I actually wanted to ask more. I mean, we know that you do something with Amazon. Tell us more specifically. What's your business about? What do you do?
Oh, yeah. So basically, I have sold pretty much any product that you could think of. Not any product that you can think of, but any category. I've sold, groceries, etc.
Where'd you start off though? What was your first thing?
Started off with books, and I've actually come back around to that. Used books particularly, and I've come back around to that, fine-tuning it because I'm so good at it, and it's just so it's so lucrative. I love it. I started out, my dad had said that a friend of his had left his career in an insurance company that he was going to retire from. He left it to start his own Amazon FBA business. Okay. FBA stands for Fulfillment by Amazon. And essentially you send your items to Amazon in bulk. You drop them off at UPS for a very cheap price. It's like 30 cents per pound. And then Amazon stores the items for a very small fee. And they're all available for Prime. And then they Amazon ships the items as they sell. So I heard about that and I was like, that's very interesting. I've never,
it's one of the best things about their selling model, actually. It's what makes Amazon a very cool place to sell.
Exactly. You outsource all of the fulfillment parts, and it's really great. And it's more, the fees are a little higher than shipping it yourself, but it's well worth it, of course, since you're outsourcing it. So I heard about that, and it intrigued me. And I would say that for about a year, that just sort of was in the back burner of my mind. Kind of just brewed there a little bit. And he had told my dad that he should do the business, but my dad just sort of let it go. He didn't really take any action with it. And when I heard it, though, I was like, that's interesting. Yeah. Let me watch some videos about this, and watched some videos, and eventually, really dove into it. And I heard about the business models of selling used books. It's a great way to find a lot of good inventory if you don't have much money, because there isn't really another business model with Amazon, at least, or where you can buy an item for $1 and then profit $5, $10, $20, $100, or $500. Just goes up.
It kind of makes sense too, because people buy a book and if they don't want it anymore, what are they going to do with it? It's not like most people think, well, I'm going to go sell it somewhere. Some people do, but most people don't think that way. It's like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. For $1, sure, you can have it.
Yeah. Exactly. So I went around and was, so of course I was simultaneously watching a lot of YouTube videos. I mean, just educating myself like crazy, thinking of it like I was in college. And, just constantly. So while watching all these videos and learning something new, I was going to thrift stores in the very beginning and looking for the books. I was able to scan. Amazon has some third-party apps and their own seller app that you can scan the UPC or the ISBN for a book. and it will tell you the value of the item
That's
or the
nice.
book.
That makes
Yeah,
it
and it'll tell
really
you
easy. Wow.
exactly. Yeah, and it will tell you how fast it will sell.
So you just work your way through the thrift store and just scan these ISBN numbers and say, okay, no good, no good. Oh, that's a good one. No, no, yeah, that's a good one, and just kind of stack them up.
Yeah, exactly. And in the beginning, it was sort of like focusing on anything that would make a profit. Like maybe if I can make at least $3 back, on a book, I would take that, because it was something, as long as it was a fast seller, and just, I was taking the smaller, lower hanging fruit. And yeah, I would just go to like 8 thrift stores per day or something like that, and just
Wow. Yeah,
wipe them
you were
out.
really
And
dedicated.
yeah, exactly. And so it was focusing on learning what books sell well. It was mostly nonfiction books that sell well, like because it's the very niche stuff, like something the more specific.
They're usually very price tag too. I mean, nonfiction books tend to have a higher price tag on them.
Exactly. In like a brick and mortar store, maybe the fiction would do better because maybe they just want to move it, quickly off the shelves, and they don't have fees to deal with. But if I find a book about like I don't know, it's something very niche and specific, bird watching for blind people or something like that, just very, very specific. If it's 2 subjects, it's even better when they're combined. 3 subjects, it's probably, it's probably
Really?
a profitable book. Yeah, not always, but I kind of, developed kind of like a sixth sense of what to look for. I usually know. So yeah, just very niche.
You've seen the sales numbers, so you can tell firsthand by looking at your back end that Amazon gives you. You can see which ones are selling, how quickly they're selling. Of course, you're going to get a sense for it. It makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it tells you, how much they sell for, how fast they're selling too. There's a little calculator so you can put your, buy cost in. If it's if it's $1, I don't really need to do that because just subtracting $1 from the buy cost. But so I did that, and I was going to estate sales a lot and buying the books in bulk. Sometimes I'd buy a few hundred books, and one estate sale in particular was very they gave very, very good prices. It might have been like they might have just been like $30 for everything, and I would just get like 200 books. And
yeah, there you go.
There's a certain point I didn't even look at them. I just bought all the books, and then and then just went through them afterwards. And then what I would do was I would trade the books in to a used bookstore, and then use a store credit to buy actually good books. I would take the duds, the bad books, the duds, and trade them in. And I would do that. And so estate sales.
You found a way to make money off the ones that weren't going to make money. That's very good. That's
cool. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I remember in one appointment, Joel described it as, he said, I found a way to make money out of thin air when I'm taking the duds and doing that. Yeah, so don't really do that as much because I don't need to, but I always can. I can always, there's so many books out there. People just view them as not quite trash, but they don't, almost trash. You know what I mean? Almost trash. Yeah. So I did that, and I also was putting out advertisements. I learned this idea from other Amazon sellers on YouTube. I was putting out advertisements on Nextdoor, Facebook Marketplace, etc., just essentially offering a free book removal service. A lot of people just, maybe they're older and they just want to get rid of the books. And
great way to get inventory cheaply.
Yeah, exactly. So, the payment is me getting to sell the books that are profitable, and the rest I would just take to Goodwill or trade in.
Right.
And those were literally free books, and I would trade those in for store credit as well, things like that. And I would just, it would snowball. And I remember I would get a lot of people calling me asking for me to take their books away. And I definitely had some home runs. And when I started to get more money, this started to snowball. I started to look at other things, and I do sell other products on Amazon aside from books. But yeah, as I mentioned earlier, it's kind of come back around to books because now I would say about 99% of my inventory, I buy it directly on Amazon and then resell it on Amazon again. My books.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that is
fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And that we call that online arbitrage or online book arbitrage specifically.
Okay.
So I
remember I actually tried it for a bit. There was a way to do the same thing, buy it on Amazon, sell it on eBay, or vice versa. So the same kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I know a lot of people that do that as well. Yeah, the same thing or vice versa, like you said. I've heard of people doing that from Mercari to Amazon, Mercari to eBay, eBay
Yeah.
to Mercari, eBay to Amazon, and all the combinations for sure. Yeah, so I do source some stuff on eBay as well. That's a good point. And just finding all these little ways to stack up money, like using cashback services. If I'm already buying the book on eBay, getting 2% cash back, and then putting it on a cashback card. If someone were to spend, I mean, there are sellers who spend $1 million in a year, and then they get 5% back on their sourcing. That's already 50K. It adds up. Things like that. They can. Yeah. That's just kind of like the cherry on top, though.
Right.
But yeah, so I find books books on Amazon or eBay that are listed well below their intrinsic value, and then they actually go. This is a new development as of maybe a month and a half ago. I use a third-party prep center now, which is a company. There are a lot of them. They're in every state. They receive my item for a fee, a small fee actually. They receive my item, unpackage it, prep it, put just everything I need to do for it to go out the door.
Right.
And then they ship everything for me now to Amazon's fulfillment center. So now I don't have to touch my inventory at all. That's a new development. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Very cool. So at that point, now your job is to provide the new inventory to ship to them.
Yes, exactly. So I'm always, every day I'm searching for new inventory, whether it's just something below its intrinsic value or a lot of books are seasonal, like textbooks, for example. I could buy a textbook for $10 and it sells for $40 during August or January, for example.
Right.
And then, or, it could be a $50 textbook in the off season and then it sells for $100, or something like that. Just to, now that I have the capital, I'm able to do that. My buying power is a lot higher, and I don't focus on buying a dollar book to make $3 or $5 or $10. I'd much rather now spend $20 to make 15, or even if it's not 100% return on investment, or spend $50.
But basically, you're getting more bang out of every effort that you make, is what you're really saying.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So that's where I am now with that. That's my business model. Yeah, looking for seasonal books and books just below their value, and that's what I do.
Now, are you thinking about getting to a place where you have somebody acquiring inventory for you?
Yes, I am going to definitely do that. It's actually a pretty common thing. Amazon sellers, once they've reached this point that I'm at where they're not touching their inventory, they do eventually hire virtual assistants. It's a very big thing. There are actually Amazon virtual assistant Facebook groups to try to match virtual assistants with sellers. It's a very popular thing actually in the Philippines. It's a very very popular thing. People will find virtual assistants, and
Philippines that's a wonderful country to get help too. I actually have my VA for the show is in the Philippines.
Oh, really? Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
And the woman who answers the phone for my gardening business also is in the Philippines.
Oh, really? Nice. That's smart that you do that. I know there's a book I'm going to read. I haven't read it yet. It's the I think it's like the 5-hour work week or something like that talks about stuff like that. So I first heard it and hearing about that book, and then hearing from other booksellers and just Amazon sellers in general, the concept. So yes, I am going to do that. That will be
that's the next step for you. I can tell.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've got to figure out the logistics for that. But I'll figure that out.
I'm sure
I was afraid to, figure out about the prep center at one point, but then I just, one day I was like, oh, well, what's there to be afraid about? Just start now. There's only the present moments.
Yeah. And I love how you're doing it. You're doing one step at a time. You're not taking on too big of a chunk. You're not taking on too big of a risk. I know people who have tried to do stuff and they took on too big of a risk and they got themselves in trouble. And that could be, I'm sure you've heard the stories. You've probably encountered that quite a few times. It's you can get yourself in trouble doing this if you don't do it methodically, if you don't do it one step at a time, not expecting to have, a home run right out of the gate and all that kind of stuff.
And one I'm sorry to interrupt. One thing I would like to point out, when Judson said he was studying in the beginning, sort of like college, it wasn't sort of like college. He was studying, I call it, he has his master's degree in this. He spent years.
There you go.
I mean, every single thing. I mean, we discussed it. So don't underestimate that education process he put himself through and continues to do, by the way,
Mm,
and learning new concepts, not having to touch your product. That's gigantic.
that's
Also being
magnificent.
able to set up, search parameters. We have some of the things he really likes in his own personal life. He'll find books, certain comics and stuff that can be extremely valuable that you can find really cheap. So it's, how many search parameters you have out there? I mean, it seems a lot.
I have thousands. Yeah. So I have
Thousands, I
that's a
love
good
it.
point. It's so that's a really good point. Yeah, that's another way I just so when I find I'll look for books on Amazon, and so there's a tool, it's called Keepa, and it shows me everything I would possibly want to know. I use it for my desktop, and it shows me just everything you'd possibly want to know about a product, like how often it sells, much more detail than the scanning app I was talking about. Everything just in high detail, and I can set alerts for products. Let's say I sold a product for $100. Well, maybe I can see on this on the this graph, this Keepa graph, that sometimes one of Goodwill stores, maybe a Goodwill or whoever has listed it for $40 or $20. It drops, and I'll get notified if it is below the value that I set. I'll set a notification alert for $40, and if it's 40
Right.
below, then I get notified for that. And so that gives me an extra 5 to 10 or sometimes more profitable items per day that are I get the notification and I just go ahead and buy them. Sometimes someone's already beat me to the punch. I mean, but there are just millions and millions and millions and millions of books and products on Amazon. So it's pretty much impossible for it to be oversaturated. And I
Isn't
see a
that
lot of
interesting?
doom and
Yeah.
gloom. Yeah, exactly. I see a lot of doom and gloom on Facebook groups, like, oh, it's becoming too saturated, etc. Well, I'm sure it is becoming too saturated for them because that's their perspective, but not at all.
Yes.
There's not even a dent in it. It's just crazy how there are unlimited ways to make money nowadays. It's incredible.
Isn't that really something? You touched on something beautiful there, that it's all their perspective. Because that perspective, my goodness, you just described in 10 words why some people succeed and why some people fail.
Thank you. Yeah. I had to really drill that into my mind. It's drilled into my mind though. Yeah.
I can tell. Yeah, I think we all could tell.
Well, the
Thanks.
perspective creates reality, and good or bad, either direction. And
Either way.
when you hear the ranting and raving and the woe is me and the world's falling apart, it is for those people. And
It is. Yeah.
it is
it's real.
that Facebook group where they're bitching and moaning about it's true. It's not, they're not faking it. And the reality, like Judson has, that him and I talk about every week, that I get to choose that reality. I get to choose my reality, live in the reality that I choose. And people say you're delusional. I said, maybe, but it's my reality. So it doesn't matter if it matches that. And by the way, I've never denied I'm not delusional. You know that, Will. So,
no, you put up with me. That's kind of a delusion right there.
That is right. That's what I was thinking, actually, to be honest with you. But but seriously, when all this stuff Judson is describing is he's very humble and it's even greater than he's describing, but it really is his perspective and his attitude and is the law of attraction that drives all this. Everything he touches with the right perspective and attitude, it turns out amazing because he's expecting it to be that way. And to have getting to a point like we were talking, I believe, our last session, that he can operate his company from anywhere in the world. He could.
Yeah.
He might want to live in, England for a while and operate it from there. He can live wherever. He's also very fond of Japan. He's going to visit there sometime soon, I hope. And and so he is going to he can run it from Japan.
Absolutely.
And that's the beauty of the model he met. And there's no limit. That's the thing. There isn't any. Like it's funny because I have some other people that do this, have done this, and their attitude was never as strong as Judson's. And so there would be some some Amazon changes, and they would be like, oh my gosh, Amazon ruined it because they did this. And Judson's like, no, it's actually sort of better, and blah, 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 blah. And Justin's perspective, it never slowed him down. It didn't change anything. And that's the amazing part is he's maintained that solid attitude, that solid perspective the entire time, which has made him wildly successful.
So Judson, I mean, you never really fell into that mindset ever?
I mean, it's been, you know, it's tested me at times, especially in the past, you know, when I see all the doom and gloom, you know, someone freaking out, oh my gosh, it's my fees are higher 2 cents per item, you know, or something like that. You know, you know, people just being really extreme. It's the end of reselling. But no, I've never actually fallen into it. You know, earlier on, yeah, when I wasn't quite as
I mean, when you first started, there had to be some doubt going on. I mean, that's just
yeah.
natural when you're starting something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I see, just the other day I saw people freaking out, you know, in a Facebook group, and just going crazy. And there are now some people who are, you know, taking the opposite, the opposing viewpoint, that the positive, abundant viewpoint. They're just, this one guy wrote, this is just doom and gloom. You're not, you know, selling good products if you were, you know, learning how to read the data and learning how to do this. You wouldn't be worrying about this, you know, doesn't really matter. You know, you have to get, prices are always rising, then sell higher priced items. You know what I mean? Just sell more valuable stuff. There's always a solution.
Well, actually, one of my gardeners, one of the people who works for me, when she wants to make some extra money, she'll go to thrift stores and so forth, and she'll look for those. I can't remember what the brand is, but there's a brand of women's shoe that's got the red sole, and apparently those are really expensive shoes. So she'll buy them really cheap at the thrift store and put them online and sell them and make a fortune off of them. I'm basically the idea you're talking about. I want to make the big money hit on one sell. It's
Smart.
cool. Yeah.
Smart. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I love doing that. I do sell, I sell some on eBay as well. Something, some of these books behind me actually are ones that I have listed for sale, and something that's like signed or something very unique, I don't want to sell on Amazon because it will just get lost in all the listings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It won't, people don't usually read the description notes.
Right.
I do sell high value books on Amazon, of course, but if it's something very one of a kind, like if it's some sort of, like, you know what I mean, then it's going on eBay, things like that.
Okay. So that's how you handle a first edition or a signed copy or something like that.
Yes, exactly. Because a first edition, it's not really the type of thing that will sell on Amazon. But I mean, you know, maybe the second edition's worth $30, but the first edition's worth 200 or something.
Yeah,
it's going on eBay, because there's not really a good way to sell it on Amazon, because you see how it's set up. But
interesting too that means that the people on eBay are reading these descriptions in detail in a way they're not doing on Amazon.
Right, exactly. And they have photos. There is a way to add photos to Amazon products, but almost no one does that. I mean, it's just no one does that. It's too much. But eBay, most people do, I would say. But yeah, that's a smaller amount of stuff. But that's just like the big valuable ones, like the grand slams, I would say, the gold.
The way Joel tells the story, and kind of the way you were telling it, is that when you got started, you were going great guns, so you were just flying right out of the gate. But there had to be some doubts going on, certainly with your grandparents treating the situation like they did, and probably other family members as well. I mean, that's usually what happens. As much as they love us, they undermine us. That's kind of their job in life, and so you have to deal with that. Can you recall what you thought about and did to overcome all that negative training?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there definitely was a lot of what you described. You described it perfectly. I remember specifically, like, my dad would always be saying, you need to get a 9-to-5. You need to get a job here, you know, et cetera. Just constantly, like a broken record, basically, like just constant. And so it was difficult hearing that type of stuff, you know.
So how'd you cope with it?
Yeah, I guess when I hear someone saying, I don't believe in you, I just kept telling myself, well, I believe in me. I you know, just kept writing down that I was going to succeed, and writing down these positive affirmations, saying them in my head. And I almost, I think I did somewhat, but I almost did it. I almost viewed it. I don't know if this is the right way to go about it, but I almost viewed it like, okay, well, I'm going to do this I'm going to succeed out of spite. Everyone who is telling me I cannot win, I'm going to win just to prove them wrong.
Yeah.
That's a good tool. Nothing wrong with that tool. There's nothing wrong with that tool.
There isn't. No.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was sort of like that, I think, at the beginning, just sort of like, okay, well, over my dead body, I'm not like, I used to say failure is not an option. I don't like to say that because, of course, failure is the quickest way to success. Quitting is not an option. And that
There you go.
it was
There you go.
willpower for me in the beginning, not as much belief, but willpower really pushed me through a lot, I would say.
And we
It
spent a
was
lot.
hard.
We did spend a lot of time in that reprogramming the subconscious by the mantras and the daily gratitudes. And you know, if he came, if back in the day, if he came in, things were not quite right, or a family member that created an issue, I would point out to him. I would revisit his success. I would override that discussion by talking about, here's what you've done. Remind it. And when he would leave the session, he'd be like, "You're right. That's the reality. That's the reality." He juiced up and he's ready to go now. So that reprogramming by pointing out that sort of that neurolinguistic concept of, let's identify what is right. Where are we at? What has worked? And so when somebody tells you something that you know is absolutely not true, it doesn't have the bearing. When you believe that what they're saying, it does have an effect on you. So by making their statement totally irrelevant, like somebody the other day, just randomly on one of my Facebook posts, it said something bizarre like, yeah, you're a fake success.
Yeah.
What's a fake success? What?
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, okay. but that doesn't move. That doesn't do anything because that's not even a reality. That doesn't match. So you can't. Somebody saying that doesn't in any way hit home with me. But there was a time that might have hit home with me with some imposter syndrome many years ago. But there's no way that affects me now. So yeah. So that's what Judson had to do in the beginning is that's what we were meeting pretty much weekly, reminding him, this happened, but look at the reality. And that even happened with the medication. Like, okay, your life's better now. I'm not anti-medication, but I'm a believer in medication only as long as you need it. And when you realize life is going really well, do we need this one or that one? And we were able to drop off the meds over time.
Right.
And even with the ADD meds, it's like he's learned how to master the ADHD brain. And so, we're not always the most efficient things with the ADD, but we always are, there's a very powerful brain. And with his systems he has in place, that compensates for any ADHD that may be there.
Well, Joel often tells us, Judson, that ADHD is a superpower. Is it for you too?
Absolutely. It's a super duper power. Yeah, absolutely. I'm very grateful for my mind, and Joel, you're always joking that we have superior minds, actually, and I can get behind
superior.
That. Yeah, yeah.
It's an evolution. I really do believe it's an evolution of the brain.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have powers. I can't deny that. I mean, it did not feel that way early on for sure, but I definitely can see it now, and the whole world will see our superpowers. Yeah.
The way that you guys were describing those early experiences and how you were working together, I love that segment. I think listeners are going to take a lot of value out of that because I think a lot of listeners have only a vague sensibility of what it's like to work with a life coach. And what you described is exactly what the benefit is of working with a life coach. The life coach helps you shift your perspective to deal with things in a way that's more powerful for you rather than taking the power away from you. I mean,
yes. Absolutely.
You go ahead. You comment on it. I don't want to put the words in your mouth.
Yes, I do. Just from the very get-go, the first appointment I had with Joel, one of the first things he said to me was, a therapist is going to talk to you just about your past and ruminate on that a lot. Not that, as Joel, you always say, neither of us are anti-therapy or anything like that.
Sure.
More so just anti-staying stuck in therapy.
Yes.
We're not going to be discussing that. We're going to be discussing going forward. We're going to be discussing the present moment. We're going to be reprogramming, any sort of negative beliefs you have about yourself. But we're not going to be the stuff that happened. I want to almost say it didn't matter. Is how you kind of worded it. And I mean, it feels like it matters, but we're not here to discuss that all the time. That doesn't have power over you. Whether now it feels like it has power over you, but it does not in reality. And yeah, he said that to me, something like that. The very first appointment, and that matches up with what you said, rather than focusing on the past. Yeah, trying to reprogram these beliefs and reframe everything.
I guess what I'm leading up to is this is a sentiment that I've heard from many people who have either been coaches or been to coaches or both. Actually, the best coaches also have their own coaches. That you actually don't do yourself any favors if you don't have a coach. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I think that anybody should have a mentor, whether that's just a mentor in life, like a life coach, or in a specific field. Like I know some people who had Amazon coaches to help them with getting better, more quickly. I think it's definitely very important to have a mentor, someone who is very good at something at life or doing something that you want to do. And yeah, I mean, Bob Proctor, he talks about that all the time, that you should always find a mentor. And I've been listening to him a lot, actually. I definitely agree with that.
Because a good coach keeps you on track and will notice when you're going off track and knows just based on how you're going off track what it's going to take to get you back on track.
Right.
It's
exactly.
Incredibly valuable.
Extremely. It's priceless, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very, very,
and
very
one
priceless.
One of the things that we have also followed, like he mentioned, he started with The Secret. Then we introduced him to Law of Attraction, Abraham Hicks. Then Asking It Is Given, and some of the other stuff along the way. And then, we have recently been really focused on Bob Proctor. And after, he always tend to forget to mention Bob sometimes, but he may be the most powerful man that I've ever met in the Law of Attraction. So he brings so much power. So Judson's really become a Bob Proctor fan as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That. I mean, he's passed on, but he would absolutely love that.
Oh yeah, he was.
Yeah.
I've never met anybody that believed it more than Bob.
Yeah, and what an enthusiasm level too. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I remember the new development I mentioned with my prep center. That was sort of I could almost say that Bob Proctor yelling in my ears in my headphones, go do that thing now, whatever you need to do. I'd say it's thanks to him that I went ahead and hopped on that a month and a half ago. It's kind of hard to not be motivated when Bob's like, no, don't wait for the right circumstances, just do it now, go. I'm like, okay, message received, Bob, I'm going. And I set up the prep center, and it was actually very easy. And
isn't that interesting how that works?
Yeah.
I mean, because you got you we all do what you did. I mean, we get ourselves worked up about something. Oh, it's gonna be too hard. I can't handle it. I don't know if I'm good enough. All that, and then you go do it. It's like, oh well, that wasn't so bad.
Yeah, exactly. It was surprisingly easy, and it was all fear over nothing and hesitation over nothing. Yeah. It was really easy. Yeah, I remember, speaking of going off of medications. Again, I want to reiterate, like what you said, I'm not anti-medication, of course, and it served its purpose. But I remember when I first went off of 2 antidepressants, and I'm telling this story to kind of show the narrative that a lot of people have. I told 2 friends, I guess more like acquaintances, that I went off of them, and that I didn't need them anymore. And this one of them seemed to get offended just me saying that I went off of them. Really? He said, quote unquote, he said, having the mindset that you graduated from antidepressants is a flawed mindset. And then I just responded with, I don't think that I graduated from them, but I felt, they weren't helping me at all. And I was just on something that wasn't helping me at all. And it was just unnecessary and just giving me negative side effects. And yeah, I just thought that was interesting. That seems like a kind of a common, you guys have talked about it a lot in the show, but people getting offended about someone making a positive development in life. Or, I mean, I don't know. I guess medication is more controversial. So maybe that's,
it's an easy one to jump on because there is a controversy attached to it. But I think you're onto something here, because anytime that we are encountering somebody else who has, not that it's a competition, because it's really not, but who has perhaps achieved a higher level of growth than they have, it's almost like it's an attack. I mean, it's not an attack, but people sometimes take it as if they were offended because somebody else did better than them. Like, why should that person think they're better than I am? That kind of thing.
Well,
it had nothing to do with that at all.
True. The other day I was watching this post, and I don't get involved in this stuff. I was just watching this post, and somebody had made the comment about it was in a law of attraction concept in the original post, And this lady came in and said, but that doesn't work for people with severe trauma. And so that started, and I knew that was going to start the
you can tell.
things. So people came in and said, well, you gotta quit focusing on the trauma and focus. And it doesn't work that way. She spent, I don't know how many times I've quit following the thread because it was so, but she defended her trauma like it was the most valuable thing she ever had. She wouldn't even consider that there would be a possibility of not being, she said, you're blaming the victim. And the lady was like, we're not blaming anybody. We're just simply saying, take your attention off of it. Let's move on with life. She said, but it's got to be healed before I can move on with life. But the way she's doing it, she'll never be healed. And
never be healed. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the scary part for me. And I never like to, if people want to own their stuff and really become a mesh with their identity, but her identity was her trauma.
Yeah.
And that's the, I know that because it's a real slippery slopes. And I understand trauma is real. It is definitely real. And you must address it, but you don't have to be stuck in it.
Yeah.
Right. Victim empowerment, not victim blaming. It's victim empowerment. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It's very powerful. Definitely.
I love the phrase too, victim empowerment.
Yeah.
It's a great phrase.
Has a good vibration to it. It kind of takes a lot of the sting out of where people want to take it.
Exactly.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah.
It's
one of those things that I've encountered it many times in my life. I went through, as you probably know, Judson, from listening to the show, I went through David Strickle's program, the TIA program. And one of the things he pointed out, actually the last time he was on the show, he pointed out that people who go through the program, because they have moved themselves up the spiral, so to speak, in significant ways, a lot of them end up divorced, which, by the way, is what happened to me too.
Right. I remember you mentioning that. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's because if people are growing at different rates or maybe one person's doing a lot of growth and another person's not growing at all because they're kind of stuck in that place, that mindset, it is going to tear people apart because they stop being able to identify with each other. When one person's on that upward path and they're thinking more positively and the world is their oyster, and the other person has, the flip side, the negative side of the exact same situation going on in their narrative. That you can't have those two narratives at the same time. It doesn't work.
Yeah, eventually one has to give. I mean, it's just a growing gap between the two, and I guess the other, maybe the person who isn't working on themselves as much, maybe they'll develop some resentment, like we were talking about earlier, like with the antidepressant thing, or people, just getting some sort of resentment against someone improving. Yeah, maybe that's another factor in it as well. Yeah,
and so we actually have to learn to navigate a world where we just have to accept the fact there are going to be people who are going to do that. They're just going to be that way. And the challenge is, well, can we let them be who they're going to be? Well, are we going to let them, they're in their place and they're on their path and they're going to grow or they're not, and just be okay with that. I think that's one of the hardest challenges we have, is being okay with the fact that other people are just choosing not to grow.
Law of allowing, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And that we started the show with that concept of, I if you want what I got, I'll be willing to share it with you. Right. But I'm not, if your reality is created by this victimization and all the other stuff, and your life is reflecting that of a victim's life, then I can't undo that for you, because you're the creator of your own reality. And I'm not making fun of anybody. I'm not picking on anybody. But I shared this story before. This lady was, I was on actually a radio show, just doing an interview, and the host it was about depression and anxiety. And so I don't know what she thought. She signed me up for the show, so I didn't know what she thought I was going to go. She clearly didn't research me, but so she was talking about, she said, well, Joel, you've been through a lot of stuff. How do you manage your depression and anxiety? And I said, well, I basically I decided to change my life. I got my, turn things around. I exercise every single day. I write a gratitude journal. She interrupted me. Go, no. What medicine do you take to maintain your depression? I said, I don't have depression anymore. I don't have anxiety anymore. She said, are you sure? I go, I'm really sure. I promise you I don't. And she was like, well, you didn't do that with exercise and mindset and gratitude. And I said, I'm telling you I did. And she said, then you didn't have real depression and you never really experienced any real trauma.
Well, we got to minimize it if we're not going to get our narrative validated, right? We have to find some way to minimize it.
Yeah, I mean, I very seldom do that. I said, well, I haven't had many traumas, but being homeless, going to jail, and losing my son in a car accident was. I mean,
Fairly
some
traumatic.
people consider that traumatic, but
yeah.
And I'm not trying to jest too much with it, but the idea that she was literally cut me off on the show really disconnected me because I thought we were talking about all concepts of how to deal with anxiety and depression. I am not saying that exercise fixes depression for every single person. I'm not saying that.
Right.
I am telling you this. Exercise certainly will help to some degree with depression, even if you have medication. I promise you. It works. It helps a little bit. For me, it's what I needed. And that's another thing. Judson's really getting into his weightlifting too. His latest thing.
Oh my goodness.
He's doing.
Yeah,
So we've added that. The idea that your reality is going to respond to your solutions is in that same category. So my solutions, they're based on what I believe. They're guaranteed to work because I believe in them so much. And I admit that. I'm not saying this works for everybody. If you go exercise and you do it with a really negative attitude, say this is ridiculous, it's not my depression, it may not work.
Well, you probably won't stick with it.
You won't stick with it.
Right.
But I go in with first of all, that's my sort of my social life and everything else at the gym. It's great. It's fantastic. I love the gym. So I go in with a great attitude, love what I'm doing. I love to, I leave nothing on the table. I have a great workout every single day I work out. And that's my reality. And I love how I feel afterwards.
And I think we could say that anybody, while exercise might not help everyone with depression, I mean, if someone doesn't exercise and they start exercising and they stick with it, they will 100% feel better, at least somewhat. It's pretty much impossible not to feel a little bit better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. But again, there's people that don't like that mindset. And by no means, I always give my disclaimer, I'm not suggesting anyone not take their antidepressants, not follow their doctor's rule. I have never claimed to be anti-medication. I believe it has a role. I think the medication in Justin's life was used perfectly. Judson, sorry. Son's name Justin.
You're fine.
Yeah, I thought it was used perfectly. But when he got his life together, he started himself working with his doctor to get off those medications. And that's what he did. So that's how, in my opinion, that's how they're supposed to be used.
Yes. My doctor even just said, you don't need them anymore. He just said that. And it wasn't some big thing, like a planned out huge event. It was just, oh yeah, I'm going off them. Yeah, it wasn't, it wasn't some grand thing. It wasn't, it's just like, don't need it anymore. Mindset change.
Like the story that Joel's told us about another young man he worked with, quite a bit younger than you, who basically fired his psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist kept looking at Joel saying, "What the hell are you doing here?"
yeah. That was, when you see that, and the everything that one day, Judson, I haven't talked him into this all the way. He's going to write his own book one day. And, and so his story is so amazing because I think one of the reasons it happened is he was a younger 23, right? When we first started meeting.
23,
yeah.
Right.
He was younger and very open. I believe he had a sixth sense to all this, knowing that this was there, and he was looking for it. And I think that we were laughing the other day because one of the things that in the beginning he would question, because he was brought up in a traditional religious home, is some of the things I talk about don't match that. Yeah. At first he's like, is Joel the Antichrist or something?
Sure. Yeah. That's natural. That would be a normal kind of response because that's why you were brought up.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It was it's exactly like you said. And I don't want to come across like I'm speaking badly about anyone's religion, but I was essentially in a cult, and that's sort of
wow.
I mean, in a way, you know what I'm saying? Because if I'm just thinking this man is telling me a different perspective that is the opposite of my Christian religion, and anyone would tell me that I need to think that that's actually the devil trying to talk to me about, I don't know. I just think, I don't know. It was like, it kind of felt like a cult-like mindset. And yeah, exactly.
Do you remember what your reaction was the first time Joel mentioned law of attraction to you?
I didn't use the word. I just gave him the secret. I basically gave him the book. So
I think, that exactly like you said. I guess the first time we ever talked about law of attraction and in any sort of religion, we kind of discussed the concept that all religions to some degree have sort of mentioned this concept in some way, like Jesus, sure. Buddha, or anyone in some form. We kind of talked about it like that.
Yeah.
That was very interesting.
But do you remember what your reaction was?
My reaction, just I came from an open-minded point of view, but also just sort of like, well, I don't know. Could it really be this simple? Was I missing this simple yet powerful thing my whole life? I don't know. I was like, like that. Yeah.
So somewhat open to it, but kind of doubtful all at the same time.
Yeah, kind of doubtful at the same time. I was like, wow, I really missed this. This very big thing. Yeah, I was kind of not skeptical. I don't want to say, because I was open-minded to it, but yeah, kind of doubtful. I would say, just like, But I was like,
we all are. I mean, in the beginning, I've had the same, when I was getting this, I was pretty much the same way. Could it be this easy? Is it not this complicated? Is it, what if I gave up my victim mindset? What do I have? That's all I had at the time,
Right. Yeah. Same here. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was,
Well, it's what led me to start the podcast. It was literally that description, what you just gave there. Like, is it really that simple? Does it actually work? I couldn't believe it would actually work. That's why I had to have a podcast to have people tell me, yeah, it actually works.
Right. That's right.
The problem is it's even simpler than we started. That was the problem. We overanalyzed it so much.
We were very good at overanalyzing it. I mean, everybody has to have a skill, right?
Yeah. So we kept saying, was it really that easy? And it's like, it's absurdly easy once you understand it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one emotion feels good, one emotion feels bad, as Abraham said. Yeah.
Let's go with the good one. That's pretty much it. Yeah, and exactly. So that the reality of all this. But as I said, in the beginning, this young man really demonstrates what. Not just the law of attraction, but it was sort of the cornerstone, but the mindset, the work ethic, the willingness to go to school, so to speak. There wasn't a school for Amazon arbitrage and all the other stuff. So he made his own school. He learned it all, and he's still learning. He's still researching. And so if the ultimate success mindset is Judson. If you did what Judson did, you're going to be rich. That's that simple.
That's fabulous.
Thank you.
Judson, many times I've talked here on the show about how, oh my God, the hour went by fast. Now, do you understand what I mean?
I do understand what it's like now from this side of the show. You often say this hour went by fast, almost every show I'd say. And now I understand this side of the perspective.
It's crazy.
This hour went by very fast.
Yeah. It's a lot slower when you're listening to it. It's a lot faster when you're doing it. And if you really love it, it just races by.
Yeah.
I can't believe I can't believe it's already been an hour. Wow.
And also, I'm sincerely grateful, as a client, and you didn't have to do this, and there's all kind of confidentiality, and I've double, triple checked with you. You're okay with this. You're a success story. I'm grateful that you're on the show today. I'm grateful to have you as a client and a friend.
I'm very grateful too, for everything that you just said. And there was a time in my life, just to give another comparison and contrast, I would have been too afraid to do this, just too nervous. And now I felt just fine doing it. I was kind of more so, maybe not anxious, but just a little bit excited, actually, I would say. My heart raced a little bit out of excitement. This is cool. I get to talk to two very like-minded people who are on a very similar vibrational alignment with me. It just feels great. Yeah. It's awesome.
Congratulations, by the way, on all those mindset shifts you've made.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you a ton.
And I'll also tell you, you know this from listening to the show. I'll tell you what I tell my other guests too, because I know you don't do lots of podcasts or anything like that. This is really like your introduction to it, but you did do it, and you're helping people in ways that you don't even know you're going to be helping them, but they are going to be helped by it. You know, so you deserve the same thing. Thank you for what you're doing, because you're making a difference in this world.
Yeah, of course. I'm really grateful to anyone who's helped me, and I'm grateful for any opportunity to help someone else. I really think that the ripple effect is strong. One little ripple can create many other ripples and just spreads. And there's a lot of negativity in the world, but there's a lot of love and positivity in the world. And I think that's more powerful. And that's what I'm going to focus on. And if it's more powerful to me, then it will continue to be more powerful. So I'm grateful for it.
What a great finishing statement that is.
Strong.
Thank you.
He just summarized it in one sentence there. Did you notice that?
Fantastic. Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, Joel, thank you for bringing Judson on. I mean, you brought somebody this time. This is great.
Well, we're gonna revisit Judson again in 6 months and have him back on.
Excellent. All right.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Good.
Well, but I'm going to put you on the spot here. We're kind of over, but that's all right. I'm going to put you on the spot here. 6 months from now, what do you think is going to be better? What do you think is going to be different?
I think that it will have hit me that I'm able to travel anywhere in the world, or, anywhere in the country, anywhere, and run my business from there. And I will have done a lot more traveling. Maybe I'll be living somewhere else, not probably still within, the same area, but, yeah, my business will be the greatest I've ever, the greatest numbers I've ever had. And yeah, I think that will be the biggest thing. I've reached a new freedom, and it will have hit me by then that I can travel and work from anywhere. Yeah.
Fantastic. Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on and telling telling the people your story. I know you've inspired people. I know that there are people who are listening to this. I swear, I really believe this is true. There are people who are listening to this who are thinking, maybe I should start doing an Amazon business because of your story.
Yeah, do it. It's be prepared, to make mistakes and not know what you're doing and not make money for months. But once you do it and get past that, then you're in the golden. It's just stick through it, and there's always a way to make money. Yeah.
There's also some parents and grandparents listening, going, "Why isn't that my kid?"
Thank you. Thank you both. You both are huge inspirations of me, and I look forward to every week's podcast. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. I'm getting red in the face again, so I gotta close here. So thank you guys very much. Thank you, Judson, for joining us. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks. Take care. Bye.